folks, welcome to Board Game Corner. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Conquest at Kismet. It's a turn-based, head-to-head card game set in the fictional galaxy of Rakrock and uses a lottery-like method to resolve battles. This allows for a very small table footprint while having a healthy mix of tactics and luck, as players battle one another until one of their motherships is destroyed. Conquest at Kismet is brought to you by Victory Point Games, designed by Vales. It's a two-player game for ages 8 and up, and playtime will run somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. So let's pick a faction and prepare for battle stations. And now the fun begins. Each player assumes the role of captain. The two available ships are the Onslaught or the Forerunner. Each of these massive ships has a unique ability to wage war. After selecting your vessel, each ship captain takes the corresponding colored deck of cards, shuffles them up, and places it somewhere near your mothership. Your mothership card is where you will find all your relevant stats: name, energy level, support limit, basic attack value, special abilities, and your hull value, or health. We will take a closer look at each ship's special abilities during the battle stations phase. On each player's turn, there is a sequence to follow that will prepare us for battle, and this handy reference card should be placed in the middle of the table for both ship captains to view. The 5 stages are: recharge your ship back up to full strength, draw back up to 7 cards, time or cooldown phase for support cards that you may have played in a previous turn, deploy new supports or replace old supports, and finally, battle stations. Okay, let's take a closer look at these phases. First off, you're going to recharge. You're going to grab tokens equal to the energy limit designated on the mothership card. The default value is 6. Energy is very important, as it will drive all the support and ability cards you play during a turn. Each of these cards shows its cost in energy in the top left. Secondly, you're going to draw up to 7 cards. Simply draw back to 7. So in the third phase, the time phase, now, if you've already deployed support cards on your ship, this is when they would cool down from their previous use. Some, but not all support cards have an arrow depicting cooldown time, 1 to 3. When a support is activated, the card is turned so the arrow points at your opponent. Each cooldown phase, regardless of who the active player is, all players will turn their support cards 90 degrees, and once fully rotated, the card is usable once again. During the deploy phase, you can equip or replace up to 3 support cards to aid your ship in battle, as long as you have the energy to do so. Energy cost is located in the upper left. Each of these support cards has text in black showing its capabilities. The text in red only applies if you use the card in the battle stations phase. The number in the upper right designates how much damage the support can withstand. As discussed during the time phase, the red triangle or arrow is called a cooldown arrow, pointing outward along the right, bottom, or left side of the card. A cooldown arrow will also have white number within it, corresponding to the number of turns it takes for the card to be active once again. The cooldown only happens during the time phase. Also, some support cards have the keyword locked on them. You may only have one card with the locked keyword in play at any one time. And lastly, all the support cards that you put into play or that have cooled down can now trigger and be activated. And now it's time for battle stations. Battle stations is divided into 4 parts: declare, prepare, pull, and clean up. This combat stack mechanic is a lottery-like system where players add cards to the combat stack. First, you declare. You can either attack the mothership directly or choose to go after one of your opponent's supports. Then prepare. Starting with the attacker, he or she may either place a card from their hand to the combat stack face down or decide to pass. After the attacker decides, the defender may then decide to place a card face down from their hand into the combat stack or pass. Neither player is allowed to look at the contents of the stack. Turns go back and forth until one player passes. The other player may then place as many cards as they want as a final placement onto the combat stack. Now the pull. When both players have finished placing cards into the stack, the defender takes the combat stack and shuffles it. After shuffling, the defender spreads out the cards face down in front of the attacker, and the attacker chooses a card from the stack at random. Now, there are abilities that both allow and force the attacker to discard their first drawn card and choose again. If the card in the final combat pull belongs to the attacker, then the attack is successful and applies their default attack value plus any modifiers to the defender's mothership or support. Move damage tokens equal to the damage dealt onto the card. Not all is lost if you fail to hit your opponent. If the final combat pull results in a miss, then the attacker gains a retribution token that can be used on their next successful attack. Both ships have their special abilities as well. These only trigger if it's your battle station's phase. The Onslaught, its first drop to the combat pile, can be from their deck instead of their hand, placing 2 cards to kick off the battle. Of course, these are unknown, but a good way to stack the deck ahead of time. The Forerunner has the ability to discard their first combat pull, also a really great way to avoid that first miss. Then lastly, the cleanup phase. You're going to sort the combat deck in the appropriate piles, discard, and then play passes to your opponent. All right, what do I think of this game? You know, let's get the bad right out of the way, and it's minor. So I think the production level of the tokens could have been better. You know, some choices there, and the production level of the box. You know, typical Victory Point insert that's already showing wear. Just shelf use, really. So those are just some minor things. But overall, I really like this game. I'm giving it a solid 3.0 out of 4 corners. And here's some of the reasons why. I really like the cooldown phase. It's a great thematic choice. I like how the cards work, how they turn 90 degrees, and depending on what level of support you chose, it might be 2 or 3 turns before you get back to it. So really fun. I really like that. And of course, the battle system. I love the lottery-like pull. You just never know what's going to happen. And there's some great ability cards as long as you have energy to help augment things in the combat pull. So on both sides. So you never know what's going to happen. I love that 2-player. You just feel engaged and that you're actually have a ship that you're actually commanding and adding things to. Really fun. And I really like the artwork. It's simplistic, yes, but it just, for me, it engages me. It gives me that feeling of, like, I don't know, the old Saturday morning serials, Flash Gordon. You know, it has that same feel to it. And there's even some hidden gems in the cards, some movie references. There's like a Firefly Shiny reference, and there's Omega 13 Galaxy Quest reference, and there's a few others. I'll leave those for you to discover on your own. The other thing they added in this game, just for table footprint really, was there's 2 levels of your ship's cards. They're smaller and a larger size. Just if you have a smaller table set, you know, you might go with the smaller deck. But typically, I like the big cards for the more thematic choice. And I really like the retribution tokens. If you do end up missing, there's just a nice way to hopefully get you back into the game. And most of the games I've played have been close, except for my first one where I was annihilated. But most of the other games have been close combat and just back and forth. And I love, just dropping those cards on that combat stack. It's just really fun. You just never know what's going to happen. Good times. All right, folks, that's my review this week. Hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.